Hello and welcome to One on One with this guy, Jeff Dantzler, our very special guest, one of the great Bulldogs and Athenians of all time, by way of Miami, Florida, the great Derrick Floyd. Derrick, we've been friends for a long time. I appreciate you taking the time out. Now, in your job as a director of the Boys and Girls Club, everything that's happened here, have the kids got you caught up to date and got you up to speed with the new technology like the Zoom interview we're doing here today?
Oh yes, they have introduced me to a new way of communication. I tell you that, and as well as the different backgrounds they have asked me to put on the screen. So yes, I have been well introduced to Zoom now.
Well, Derrick, you're really famous here in Athens on many counts. Of course, you were a distinguished member of the 1983 Final Four and SEC Tournament Championship team, the longtime director of the Boys and Girls Club, and we'll touch on that a lot later. But what you've done for so many people is immeasurable, my friend. And we get to see each other a bunch from November through March, as you're the man in the striped shirt, the official score at Stegman Coliseum for the men's and women's basketball games, and also for the Southeastern Conference tournament. And so, Derrick, let's just kind of start with your background. You came to Georgia to play hoops, and what an era it was there with Coach Durham. So kind of talk about when you came in and all the guys that you came in with.
Okay. Well, during those early years in '79, I had the honor to play in a couple of basketball camps and all-star games. I played at the BC camp that was in Millersville, Georgia, which was an invitation camp. So I had opportunity to see that Dominique and Terry Fair and some other guys play, along with Sam Bowie and Ralph Sampson. And then after leaving that, later on in that year after the season was over, high school season was over, we played in the Dapper Dan tournament again in Pittsburgh. So, and on the same team, Dominique and Terry Fair, all of us played on the same team. So we was kind of familiar with each other's skills and a way of play. So in that process of being recruited by Coach Durham and Coach Gay and all the other coaches, we just kind of said, hey, what about Georgia? What about going to Georgia and see if we could, make a name for ourselves, but more so, build up a program. And we did. So I think it was good to know that I had these guys, I had played with these guys while I was in high school. So I kind of knew the talent they had. So making that decision, it was easy. It really was easy. Getting on campus was one thing, but once we got on campus, we were already friends.
And the impact that you've had from those early days, I always like to point this out before Coach Durham arrived, and Derrick, certainly your class coming in there. Georgia basketball, we had a losing record in 23 of the previous 27 seasons. So, for Coach Durham to come in here, and I love Larry Gay and love Coach Durham, and to sell you guys, and for you guys to have that vision that you could come together and do something special here. When we got to cut the nets after beating St. John's in North Carolina, there had to be a tremendous sense of fulfillment for you.
Yeah, exactly right. I think, especially since, the expectation was high when we first got here. So to be in that year, to wait to be there at that time after 4 years to be able to do that was very exciting. I think prior to that, in '82, we was in the NIT Final Four, which gave us another taste of what it'd be on a big stage with Dominique Wilkins. And then after he left, we became not a better team, but we just became a team that really feeded off each other. So you're right. When we cut down those nets after winning and beating North Carolina, it was one of those feelings that, okay, we did accomplish something that we came to do.
Yeah, Derrick, what's so great about that team, our buddy James Banks, who was just tremendous against North Carolina, is Michael Jordan's fame grew. The legend of that victory grew with it. So how many of your kids come up to you and go, hey, tell us about the time you beat Jordan?
Yeah. When they see the Final Four ring on my hand, they always ask first of all, they ask what it is. And after I tell them what it is, then I tell them that, we played North Carolina to go to the Final Four. And some of them would be like, okay, so did you play against North Carolina when they had Jordan or not? And when I say yes, they are very excited. Like, you beat Jordan? You beat Michael Jordan? Yes, we beat Michael Jordan. Now, we lost to him the year before, but we did beat him the year after that. But yeah, it was, you're right, watching that show, and it does bring back the memory of that game. I mean, that game, we were quite naturally an underdog going into the whole tournament. But you wouldn't tell us that, you know. I mean, underdog to some, but we was the Bulldogs to many. And so when we went in there, and to get that lead, one of the guys asked me, you know, how that felt. I mean, we had a lead. So as long as we had the lead, we had more than confidence. And then had the lead we did have against them just made us more aware of what we could do and what we end up doing as far as winning.
Derrick, let's go into your duties as the official scorer, which is, and listen, I'm a nerd and a geek when it comes to sports, and that is, I mean, you are the judge and jury. You've got the gavel there. That scorebook is official. That's who the referees go to. You've got to get the starters right. There's a tremendous amount of detail that has to be put into that, and you take great pride, and you're the absolute best at it. And I know it's a great honor for you. I was so proud of you when you got asked to become the official scorer of the SEC tournament every year. So how did that job come about for you? And I guess, would you start 95?
95, yes. Tim, over at Sports Information, Tim Hicks came to me one day and asked if I'd be interested in the position. And I was excited. I mean, I knew I had taken, did a book before. I did basketball games before and did the book. But this is, when I started, I realized it was a little different, because in that, you're not only writing down the scores of who scored in their box. You're writing down that score at the bottom. You're writing down the time that score was made. You're writing down the fouls, and you're writing down the time the foul was made. You're writing down all timeouts, and then you also writing down anything that technical might come up. If official calls a technical foul, if the official calls a delay of game, whatever they call, we have to make record of that, so that and present it to the referees at the end of the game, so they can have that in when they do their report. But as a former player playing basketball, it became a little easy because I knew the game. I could watch the game and still be able to do what I was doing. But I mean, I have some great help on the side of me. I mean, I got people that's doing the scores and everything, and doing the clock. And sometimes if I miss something, they're right there to help.
Well, Derrick, during this crazy time here, I think one of the things that we all have taken note of is don't take anything for granted. And I don't know how many hundreds of times I've asked you, D, you got the starters yet? And I can't wait till we can do that again and go through. We got any scratches today? Scratch who's out of there. So, and again, I was as guilty of that as anybody, is taking things that bring us great joy for granted. For your kids at the Boys and Girls Club, and again, you've just touched so many lives. So we don't have enough time here to go through all that you've done, but everyone is so grateful for that. But that message to not take anything for granted, have you been able to convey that to your kids?
Oh, yes. I think our kids, the thing about, being in youth development, every day is a day to impact them. I mean, every day they walk in the building, in your program, it's an opportunity for them to share whatever they might have went through, and also give them advice on how to go past it. And for life, every moment is special. And I think working with kids, you have to give them that moment. One of the things I've learned too is that I've grown. I mean, I've seen myself, become more mature, more of an adult, because there's a responsibility in being involved with youth development. I mean, not only a responsibility where you go and what you do is highlighted more than anything, because some of these kids look at you as they're God's gift to America. I mean, they look at you as that person that, outside of anything is the best of the best. And so I know every day when I walk in this building, or every day I walk out in the street, that I'm representing a bunch of kids who think of me as something special. So I don't take anything for granted. And I tell them the same thing. I think when you talk to your parents, when you talk to your teachers, you never know later on in life how those people are going to impact you. I mean, there's so many people that when I played ball, I knew and met, like yourself, and then after I came in this position, they were able to help us, the Boys and Girls Club, and me, because of that relationship that they've had with me. So I think so every day you take on the responsibility of knowing that you got a job to do as a kid, as an adult, and then later on you'll realize just how much that job is going to be beneficial to you in the future.
Derrick, how did you come about getting the job with the Boys and Girls Club?
Well, I was finishing my last year after playing ball, and I was playing softball for Millage Avenue Baptist Church. And one of the guys on the team was a guy who was the youth director at the YMCA. And during the games, I used to, before the games, I would take the kids to the playground and play with them. Take them to the playground, let them play and watch them. And one day he asked, he said, hey, you do a lot of this with kids. Maybe you might be good working with kids. I'm in school, working on a marketing degree. I didn't know how marketing transitioned to work with kids, but for some reason he felt that I would be good at it. So I did. I started 2 days a week working at the YMCA and they put me with preschool pals, 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. So in 1984, I was daddy daycare. And that whole experience, how those kids respected me, how those kids looked up to me, gave me another sense of what my purpose might be and what the gift God may have given me. So I stayed there to 89, and then right at 89, the guy that was working at the Boys and Girls Club who was leaving to go to do something else, recommended me for the job at the Boys and Girls Club. And just so happened the Boys and Girls Club hired me April 1st, 1989, which was April Fool's Day. Well, I thought it was a trick, to be a worker there, and I've been there ever since.
Derrick, what brings you the greatest fulfillment from this? I've got to think too, when the kids you take from a very young age, when you see them graduate, go to college, get great jobs, become parents in their own right, I know that's got to be at the top of the list. But for you, what are some of the things that bring you the most fulfillment from your job?
I think it's funny, you say that, because recently, the article came out of SEC Sports about my involvement with Boys and Girls Club. And a gentleman, when I was young, I played rec ball at Ponciano Park in Miami. And it was a coach named Coach Wallace Francis, who at that time, was coaching football, basketball, and baseball. And I played all 3 sports. And after this article came out, I called him, and he just gave me a whole different, and I realized that what he was doing was instilling those same qualities in me as a kid, so that when I became in this position, I was able to do it because he had already set the pace, he set the way for me. Coach Francis, granted I had skills, God had given me some talent, but he made sure that he did go beyond what my talent was. When it came to being a person, when it came to be respectful to people, when it came to respecting the game. He told me a story about the game. One time it was a game, we were playing a game, and I was quarterbacking. And I was throwing the ball past, over their head. I was just overthrowing everybody. So he calls a timeout, called me to the sideline. He said, "Hey, what are you doing? You just overthrowing everybody." And I looked at him and I said, "Watch this play." So I go out there and I throw a long touchdown pass, score, I come off the sideline. He said I didn't even look at him. I just walked on the sideline and, and sat down. And he realized then that, his job was to just talk to me and tell me what I need to do, and I would do it. So when I came in this position, I made sure I had those conversations with kids to give them an understanding what they're capable of doing. But at the same time, realize too that there's somebody right there beside them trying to get it done.
Well, Derrick, I know we see each other, 50 to 100 times a year at basketball games. And so I grew up around sports and was so blessed and lucky to be able to go to games all the time. But it's cool for me, when we're breaking down our equipment, kind of settling up the game, talking about it, and you've got, at least 5, 6, 7 of your kids come down and they hug you. And again, we take for granted that we can go to these games. You're giving so many kids opportunities to do things they might not have done. And I can tell everyone, these kids absolutely idolize you.
I tell you, man, I know, I tell you, I've been blessed. I've been blessed to be at a place that recognize sports. The University of Georgia, is a recognized sports. I mean, the Bulldogs, Bulldog Nation is Bulldog Nation. It's better. It's nothing. I don't know if there's anything better than Bulldog Nation. But I think what they have given me is an opportunity to allow those kids to come to the game and be able to come to a place on the court where most people are not allowed. They're not coming. So when they come on that court, they're sitting at a big screen TV for the first time. They're seeing players and things that that most people don't see. And that's the gift of what I get from not only being on that sideline, but also the gift that I give them when they come to the games. I tell you, it's nothing more exciting too to hear what they talk about afterwards, man. A lot of times, man, they're not only talking about the game, they're talking about the Harry Dog, Spike, the things that, as adults, we just watch the game. The kids watching everything, anything in that stadium. So it also is like you say, your routine, my routine, that's a part of my routine. My routine is not only getting those starters in and scratching those people off and doing all that, is sitting there communicating with the different people at the table, but also making sure that these kids who come to this game is an experience that they'll never forget. Because of the University of Georgia giving us this opportunity, I want to make sure that while they're there, that they have very exciting and enjoyable time.
Derrick, people get into different lines of work for different reasons. And I read a great quote that you had several years ago, talking about getting rich, fulfillment, whatever it may be. So I think that's something that's very important to convey in what brings you the ultimate fulfillment from your job.
Every day, I think my job gives me the opportunity to go beyond this office, the office and the place that I work. Our kids come to us in the afternoon. So in the morning times, I got the ability to go to any school I want to check on a kid, to help in the school if I need to. And also, I'm also a volunteer photographer for spotting. So now with those credentials, I get to go to these sports events and bring those kids and give those kids who playing flag football or football, baseball, basketball, little kids, an opportunity to see themselves in the paper. So my position has really given me a chance to make sure that kids get recognized in doing good. And at the same time, it gives me the pleasure too of knowing that I'm in the middle of that. So now, like I said before, it gives me that also responsibility to make sure that I'm doing the right thing.
Well, I think the biggest thing you've done is you made a difference for so many people.
And they made a difference to me. I tell you, I say that all day long. The best gift I got was working with kids, because I will never forget. It was a day. I went to Walmart. They had built a Walmart on the east side. And I usually go to the stores late anyway, because sometimes when you go to places, it's just hard to do what you got to do with all these people coming and saying. So I went this one time about 2:00 in the morning. I walk in and I'm going around shopping, and all of a sudden this young girl, about 8 years old, runs up to me. And she runs up to me and she was like, Big D, what you doing here? And she's yelling at the same time to her mom, Mom, guess who's here? Big D's here. And her mom turns around and says, oh, hey. And then she looks at me and says, D, where you been? You smell like my daddy. Then I realized that I was, at this time, she was looking at me, trying to understand, first of all, she was excited to see me. But for a second there, I gave her a whole nother perspective. And it wasn't good, because I was hanging out with my friends, but I decided I was going to go to the store. So that point on, I said everywhere I went, everywhere I go, that I was going to be under the watchful eye. And so from that point on, I grew up. I mean, that's right after that day. Right now, she's a police officer at University of Georgia.
Wow.
And I tell people this all the time. So you know what? You have changed. You changed my life. You made me realize just how important I am. But at the same time, how every day I had to look at that importance, look at it and say, okay, this is who I am. This is what I'm gonna be. And because of you, I've changed. So I can't thank her enough for allowing me to use that experience as a tool to make me a better person.
One of the most serendipitous stories I've ever heard involves you and your Final Four ring.
I'll tell you another story, Jeff. I don't know many people know about this one. When we were going that year, during the Final Four stretch, early in the season, probably in January, we were playing a team, and after each game, during the game, you know, Coach Durham's always getting on somebody. He's not always, but he's talking to somebody specifically because he's trying to motivate that person to do or not do whatever he's doing. So one particular game, after it was over, Coach Durham went at one of the players, and I'll tell you, it's James Banks. He goes at him, telling James Banks just what he did wrong and how he did this, and because he did this, it cost us the game. And as soon as Coach Durham walks out, I take my belt. I go into the locker room. I go into my locker and I get my belt. And I go and I tell James, I say, hey, you just got the belt. You just got the belt. You know, they go the belt. And they were like, what the belt? I say, when you just got the belt, you just lost the game. You got the belt. So after that game, every game, and before the games and after the game, I have this belt, and sometimes before the game, I'll go by somebody and play like, you know, I'm just trying to find, and also I start shaking. Oh, you gonna get the belt. You gonna get the belt. And I'm telling you, as much as we came together, we all truly believe. You ask anybody, Donald Hartford, you ask Horace McMillan, you ask James Banks, you ask those guys, they probably tell you about this belt. They were not burned. They did not want the belt. So during this stretch we were winning, there were times as Coach Durham would be talking to them on the bench. And if he's going at them, like if they're doing something, I'm behind Coach Durham saying, you can't ready to get the belt. You can't ready to get the belt. and they shaking their head like, no, I'm not. And Coach Durham be like, who you listening to? Who you looking at? But that right there, I think was one of the things that really turned our season around. North Carolina, we playing North Carolina. And right before the game, Coach Durham is not in the locker room. I got the belt, and I put it on top of the screen that Coach Durham is going to come and talk to her. And it's sitting on the screen. So everybody can see who going to get the belt. Coach Durham walks in, and as he's coming in, I realize he's coming in. He's going to see this thing on here. And Coach Durham going to wonder what this belt doing on this. So I go over there real quick and grab it and slide it off the thing. And he's looking, he wants to say something. But he's already in game mode, so he's not going to switch his game mode. But he almost saw it, but no one, I don't think we ever talked about how important, you know, not wanting to get the belt changed how we played and how we won games. Because no one wanted to go after the game thinking that they were responsible for blowing the game or losing the game.
All us Bulldogs are superstitious. You got to tell the story about your ring, though, and how you lost it and found it.
Oh, yes. Okay, so I'm out in North Carolina one day, going with some friends, and we go as soon as we get to North Carolina, we go to the beach. Go straight to the beach. And as we get, I'm from Miami, so I already know the beach. But if for some reason I take my shoes, socks, and I go to the edge of the water, and I sit down by the edge of the water. As I sit down, my hand goes behind me, and as it goes behind me, I feel the tide coming. And the tide goes back, and my ring is gone. I come back, lift my hand up, and I tell like, hey, my ring. So I'm down here. That's all these people, guys, they trying to find, and it's gone. So I'm like, you know what? I should know better. I should have never did it, and I wasn't gonna allow it to spoil that time because I knew they were worried about me, how I'm gonna be feeling the fact that I lost my Final Four ring. You know, so we go. About 3 or 4 months later, I get a call from some guy who tells me that he found my ring, that he got the metal detector, he out there, and he found my ring, and he wanted to know my address so he can return my ring. And I'm telling you right now that if I already believe in God. I just knew that was God right there, because my ring, I just knew my ring was in the ocean, gone with some fish running around with it on the back of his fin. But to think that, you know, I lost it and it was returned to me was truly a blessing. I mean, I lost it in the ocean and my ring was returned to me within 3 months. And that's awesome. I mean, I couldn't tell you right now, when I told people I had lost it, and then when I called them back and said, guess what? I got my ring back. They did not believe it. They did not know how I could have gotten my ring back. But hey, I got my ring back and I got it on now.
That's 1,000,000,000 to 1, but that it was serendipitous, and indeed,
Yes,
the man
sir.
above was looking after one of his favorites and one of our favorites. Derrick, I appreciate the time, my friend. This time has flown by. We could do hours and hours on this. I hope you'll come on with me again sometime. And I just want to tell you, my friend, there's no doubt you are one of the University of Georgia's greatest ambassadors, one of Georgia's greatest alums, and one of Athens, Georgia's leading citizens. And we're all very proud of you and very appreciative and grateful for everything that you've done with so many people, and especially so many young people in this community.
Well, I tell you what, Jeff, thank you so much for your friendship, man. Thank you for, you know, all the insight that you bring on that sideline. You know, when you're over there on the sideline, we laughing because you bringing the energy during the games. And I tell you, when it's nobody greater. I appreciate you, all the kind words you said.
All right, we love you, D. Thank you so much.
Thank you too, sir.
He is the great Derrick Floyd, going one-on-one with yours truly, Jeff Dantzler. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did.